Okay, well, I'm inviting the first question from Keith because it's very apropos and also he started this off.
Thank you, Caroline. Can you hear me? It's to do with the village green. In the view of the panel, what motivated the Barnet councillors who voted to reject the application by 2 local residents' associations the village green status of the green next to our library?
Right, and that was just turned down last week, I believe. Alan, why don't you start us off?
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's difficult to say what the motivation of those councillors were, but I think I can say it was definitely the wrong decision, and I know that my Labour colleagues who were at the meeting spoke in favour of Village Green there, and also voted in favour of keep Village Green there, i.e. they voted against the council recommendation. You know, I think it's important that that area is kept as a public green. You know, it's been used by the public for many, many years, and by granting it village green status would enable that to be protected. I know the independent inspector recommended that the council rejected it, but you know, the councillors still had the opportunity to oppose that, and I think there were legitimate reasons for doing so. So, I mean, the bottom line is we need to secure that for community use and prevent it being used for development, which I hope was not in the mind of any of the councillors when they made it, for those who voted against it being a village green.
Oh, okay. I can't second guess the councillors' minds. I do know that in at least one case, a development that was being contemplated for Barnet, I'm talking about insulating buildings, energy efficiency. Initially, the conversations that were being had involved the borough helping to fundraise and fund. Now, the organisation is in conversation with Capita, and the funding is due to come out of something known as disposals. Now, what does that mean, and what do you suppose they will be disposing of? I leave the rest to your imaginations.
Right, I have a very good imagination. Janet, how's yours?
I'll do my best. Again, I can't possibly say what was in the councillors' minds, but I find it very worrisome that buildings or property that is in any way connected with the council often seems to end up as being involved in some kind of property development scheme. And I can't help but cynically think that this may be at the back of it, but of course I can't possibly say.
Okay, well, like all of us, I haven't got a clue what was in their minds, except probably party politics, because virtually every council meeting that I've been to, the vote usually goes down party political lines, and it's no coincidence really that all the Tory councillors voted one way and all the Labour councillors voted another. As Keith was there the same as I was, I actually spoke at the meeting, and I've been involved with the Village Green application almost from day one. It's been a very long process. It's been over 2 years to get to that stage where it was rejected. And it boiled down to, we actually, as you probably know, to get a Village Green status, the applicant has to go through certain hurdles. And we met all of those hurdles, apart from one, which is what the council objected to, which was that for a piece of green to be registered as a village green, it must have been accessed by the public for at least 20 years as of right, which means without the owner's permission. Now, the council were objecting on the grounds that because of the way the land was bought originally in 1929, they said originally that they objected on the grounds that it was bought to be a park, and therefore they allowed the public to use that piece of land by right. Now, that ultimately is what lost us the case, because we had the planning inquiry, and the planning inquiry was specifically to decide that technically legal point, whether the public were using it by rights or as of rights. The team that were involved in the village green application, as myself and several others, we spent many hours at the Metropolitan Archives down in London researching the history of that piece of land. It's actually very interesting, but we haven't got time to go into it now. But it was actually bought for a road widening scheme. It was never actually bought to become a public park. And therefore, at the public inquiry, we were easily able to dismiss the council's claim that it was bought under a specific section of the Public Health Act 1929, which is what they were claiming. And what is most dismaying to me and to all the other team involved was that the planning inspector was clearly not prepared to listen to our well-researched advice. In fact, we only had one day of inquiry. It was originally going to be a week. And at the end of the day, the planning inspector recognised that our findings were correct, and therefore, because it was built for a road widening scheme, the public were actually using it as of right, and therefore that meant that our application for it to become a village green should have gone through. However, the following morning after the public inquiry, the inspector sent us all an email to say that he was now reopening the inquiry, and he directed the council officials to go and find further evidence to find out what happened to that piece of land after it was originally bought. Now, I don't know about you, I don't know if many of you have had experiences with public inquiries, but it's very unusual for an inspector holding the public inquiry to actually close it, then reopen it the following morning, and actually tell one party at that inquiry to go off and find further evidence. And it's a bit like a judge he didn't like the result of a jury, and so he told him to go away, look for a different result. Ultimately, we did further research and the council did further research, and they did find some council minutes back in the 1930s and 1940s, which talked about planting that garden next to the library out as a garden. But it was actually still, at the time when it was being planted out as a garden, it was still actually owned by the Middlesex County Council, and they only agreed for it to be planted as a garden on a temporary basis. They never actually specifically said, no, you can now have this as a garden. But the annoying thing about the report, the inspector's report, was that he actually admitted that there is no firm evidence anywhere, there's no document anywhere which says that that piece of land was transferred from being a road improvement scheme to being an asset for the council as a park. He surmises it must have been because it was planted out as a park, but there is actually no hard evidence that that decision was ever made. And that was the grounds that we went to the meeting last week. And I tried to persuade the councillors that the report which was before them, which was telling them to reject our application, was actually nonsensical. The result of the report didn't make sense. He was assuming something that didn't exist. Now, why the Tory councillors chose to accept the report and not our version of it, you'd have to ask them. I honestly can't say.